Welcome back to Obsolete Automotive. I'm Austin, and today's video is going to be on my 1957 Plymouth Savoy. Now I have a question for y'all. How many people still have the first car they ever bought? I do. That's what this is. This is literally the first car I ever owned, and it's been going on 20 years now that I've owned this thing, and it's had a lot of adventures. So we'll talk a little bit about that and also talk about this car and the different features and stuff about it. I'll have to dig out some 35mm photos of this car when I first got it. That's how you can really tell how long I've owned this car. Is my original photos of this car are in 35mm. Now you're probably wondering, how did I end up with a 57 Plymouth as my first car? Well, I guess long story short, I was always into old stuff. I grew up around antiques. My granddad had his 60 Impala and a 54 Chevy pickup. I was always playing in them, I was exposed to old cars. We went to car shows and swap meets and flea markets and things. So I just loved old stuff. I loved the old music, 50s and 60s especially. Really enjoyed history, anything from World War II to car history to architecture. Like, I just loved all that old stuff. So anyways, basically when I was probably like 5 or 6, which I guess is kind of young to be seeing this, but I saw the movie Christine for the first time, and I was like, whoa, what is this car? I'd never seen a car like this before. I ended up getting a book, Cars of the Fabulous 50s, not too long after that, where I could look at all the different cars and all the different makes I didn't know about. Because you got to think, going to car shows and stuff, it was like Chevys and Mustangs and Camaros, 57 Chevys. Yeah, that's like what you would see. And when I saw a 58 Plymouth for the first time in that movie, I was like, man, that's so cool. Why don't I ever see these cars? And then I really got into them, really started researching them, learning about them. I got books on them. And this was, of course, there's the internet, not, I guess it's still kind of, back in the day in terms of the internet. So there wasn't a whole lot out there as there is now, but research, found forums that pertain to these kind of cars. And of course, fast forward to when I was getting my license, I was 15, getting ready to be 16. Wanted a car, and I wanted an old car. I didn't want a new car. I didn't want what was cool then, which I guess what was cool in 2006, I don't know, Toyota Celicas and Jeep Cherokees, stuff I wasn't into. So I put a want ad out on one of these forums looking for a 57 to 59 Plymouth, any body style, any color, any model. I didn't care as long as it ran and drove, because I soon found out that I could not afford a 58 Fury. I was never going to get one as a 16-year-old kid. No way, no how. A guy in North Carolina contacted me saying he had a car he wanted to sell. So I went and looked at it. And here it is. He actually agreed to sell it to me. At first he was a little apprehensive because me being really young, never having a car before, wasn't sure if I'd be able to take on a classic car, if you will, but he agreed to sell it to me, I think mainly because my granddad kind of talked him into it, kind of reinforced that I was going to do the car right, and he offered to deliver it to me because I didn't really have a way to get it back other than drive it. He did let me test drive it, which was the first time I got to drive a classic car. Was this car. This was the first classic car I got to drive on a test drive. So I was super stoked about getting to drive it. And I had to have it. So made the deal. He brought it to me, a bunch of parts and everything. And originally I thought maybe I would convert it to a 58 Plymouth, or, because Christine was cool and red's cool and flashy. But then I learned more on the history of the car and all that, and decided I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep it original. So we'll go into more of the history of the car in this video as well as some of the other things I've done to the car. It's been restored, and it kind of needs to be restored again. So I'll get into that. Now for a little history on the car. This Plymouth was built in Detroit, April 23rd, 1957. It was originally equipped with a 230 cubic inch flathead 6 coupled to a PowerFlight 2-speed automatic. As far as options, it had white wall tires from the factory and a heater / defroster. The automatic transmission was also extra cost. But that's it. automatic, white wall tires, and a heater. It's really the only options this car had, from the factory at least. Now, this car was delivered to Bobbitt Motors in Laurinburg, North Carolina, and from there it was purchased new by a Miss Freeman, who was a elementary school teacher. She drove this car up until, I believe, 1978, which is the last inspection on the sticker. And I believe it, for what I was told, it had some issues. It needed a radiator work or something of that sort. And it sat in front of a shop with the radiator on the roof for several years before the guy that I got it from bought the car. And then he eventually did some work to it to make it run and drive again. And fast forward to 2006, I took ownership of this car. So next year I will have owned this car 20 years, which is a long time. This is obviously the longest I've ever owned a car because it is my first car. How many of y'all still have your first car? That's a question. And what was it? And why did you keep it? I kept it because of sentimental reasons. This car has had more memories and experiences tied up in it than any other one. Drove it in high school, went to prom in it, dates, road trips. I got married in this car. You know, all the life milestones I did with this car. This was the only car I had for the longest time, and I drove it daily. It went to college before I ended up getting my second car, which was a 75 Plymouth Scamp, mainly because I didn't want anything to happen to this. I mean, it sticks out in the parking lot. So I eventually ended up getting another car in order to not have this one get damaged or, you know, what have you, in a parking lot at a college. But I still drove it as much as I could. Weekend trips, stuff like that, I always would take this car. I, of course, with the help of a friend, painted the car. It was repainted in its original jet black color. The interior I had redone at that point, as well as some other things. Eventually I did, as well in 2008, I did put in, actually it might have been 2007. I put in a 318 Poly V8 and torque flat 3-speed automatic out of a 64 Dodge with the help of my uncle, mainly because the Flathead 6 was having issues, parts weren't readily available. Plus, I wanted it a little more drivable, a little bit easier to get parts for. So did a full drivetrain swap with that 64 Dodge to put the used V8 in. I bought the entire 64 Dodge, just pulled what I needed out of it. So it has the later 727 automatic, and it had a Poly 318, which I eventually rebuilt that engine and the transmission after I drove it for many years once those gave out. So it's currently on its second transmission, and I guess it would be its third V8 or third engine, its second V8. And thousands and thousands of miles have been put on it since then, and the engine probably needs to be gone through again. I drove this car so much that the original factory rims actually split at the bead after, I guess they were not designed to go over, 200,000 miles. So this is on its second set of wheels because the first set started cracking. So I've driven this car a lot. California, multiple times, back and forth. It's gone up north, it's gone everywhere. I've taken it to the beach, I've taken it to the mountains. I've driven this car so many places. I got so many memories tied up in it. I've also done a lot. Like I said, it's been painted. It's showing its age now. The interior I had redone. The headliner was the replacement headliner from when I got it, which I guess was replaced maybe in the 70s. It eventually started falling down, so I just put in a new headliner that I sewed up myself, and I got that installed here a couple days ago, actually. So that looks nice. I need to redo the seats. I have some temporary seat covers in there now that I kind of sewed up because the original seats are in poor shape. I originally just had the cloth replaced and kept the original vinyl, but now the vinyl started to split and stuff. So I need to redo the seats at some point. When I got the car going again for my wedding, I discovered that I did not know a lot about cars when I got this thing. The floorboards of this car were just garbage. They were fiberglass, Bondo, rivets, paint. They were horrible. So I ended up replacing the floor pans on this car, as well as the seat brackets, and put in new rubber mat and everything. So I've been redoing some things that I did when I was in high school and was just getting into old cars, and I really didn't know a lot. I was learning as I went. I didn't get taught a whole lot. I learned as much as I could from other people, but most of it I just had to just jump in and get my hands dirty. And if I break it, I break it, figure it out, fix it, trial and error. I mean, I was just a poor high school kid and I wanted an old car, so you had to be able to do your own work. I couldn't afford to pay someone else to do it. So and that transpired to why I got so many old cars now, and I enjoy taking on trips and everything. This is the car that got me into it. This is the car that I still have, and now my goal is to get this thing back going. I have had all kinds of great plans for this car, dual fours. At one point I was going to convert it to stick shift, but I think I'm still keep it simple. I might put the dual fours on there just because I have all the stuff that I bought for it. So eventually I'll get to it. But all in all, this was a cheap car back in the day, I guess. No options hardly. It doesn't even have two-tone or anything. But anyways, let's just kind of go into the car itself and see what features it has. And maybe you get to see more of the 57 Plymouth. Of course, fins are in for 57, so got the nice fins on there. You can see my high school parking stickers still on the back glass. This car is a little bit lower than factory. I just, at the time, liked that look, I guess. And also partially because originally my rear leaf spring sagged so bad that I lowered the front so the car wasn't like motorboating like that. I eventually put in another set of leaf springs off of a 58 Plymouth parts car, which kind of raised the rear end up a little bit. So the front end still as it was, and it was aligned and everything with the front end lower, so I'm just not going to touch it. Now at some point, the dual exterior mirrors were added, as well as the radio that was added after the fact. This was the mid-level model, the Savoy. They had the Plaza, which was the cheapest, then the Savoy, which this one is, then the Belvedere. And then of course you had the special edition Fury, which I guess would be the tippy top. Let's take a look under the hood. Under the hood here we got a 318 cubic inch Polysphere V8. Like I said, this engine was out of a 64 Dodge. I did get a correct single 4 intake and eventually replaced the 2-barrel that was on here with this 57 WCFB 4-barrel with the 1-year only side mount air cleaner. But with the 64 engine, I did get a alternator. I did convert this car to electronic ignition, and then eventually I did convert it to disc brakes. So that's why it's got all this newer stuff on there. Underhood is not clean. You may notice down there is a ratchet strap because the motor mount started failing, and the fan would actually raise up and start clipping the bottom of the radiator hose. So I ratchet strapped that down for a temporary measure, but it's been on there for like 10 years. I have brand new motor mounts in the trunk. I just never got around to putting them in. I just drove this car so much that the ratchet strap was working, so it's still there. I will fix that eventually. This is my siren that I added for fun because this car kind of looked like an old police car. You wouldn't believe the comments I got in high school. Oh, the Batmobile, the Batmobile. That's what people would say, and I was just like, whatever. Yeah, it's not too pretty under here. It definitely needs cleaning up, and you know, I do need to go through the motor again probably. It's got quite a few miles on it. I want to say 150,000 miles on this motor now, so it's kind of tired, I guess. It's burning a little oil and such, but for most part I tried to keep this as era correct as possible. But then eventually, like I said, I went with the electronic ignition and the disc brake stuff, because I was driving this car across the country. I was putting hundreds and hundreds, I guess actually thousands and thousands of miles on this car all the time, so I just wanted it to be reliable. You can see here it still has the original inspection mark there. I taped around that when I painted the car. There's the last inspection sticker there, 1978. We do have the refrigerator style door handles. Has the original door panels. They're a little dirty, a little worn. Like I said, I've driven this car a lot. This seat was a set of aftermarket vintage seat covers for this car. You can see the back. It has the original aftermarket material, whatever that was. It's kind of like plastic, but it started disintegrating in the sun, and you can actually kind of see my old upholstery under there that's severely faded. But when I got this fabric, had it sewed into the original seat covers, and it was black, and it matched perfectly. My friend got it from the furniture plant where he worked, but it obviously was not made for UV rays and stuff, and eventually faded out. And I put these seat covers on just as a temporary measure, but then they started disintegrating in the sun, which is why I ended up sewing this panel in so it wouldn't just shed everywhere. I mainly did this for my wedding, so I wouldn't have like crap getting all over our clothes. But got a brand new rubber mat. There's actually a reproduction, I guess it's not reproduction, but a new old replacement stock floor mat, because the original one was hard as a rock and eventually tore up. So I had this one that I've been saving for years, and when I redid all the floors and everything, I put the new front mat in. I still have the original mat in the back because it was still somewhat pliable. As far as instrumentation goes, we got our, of course, speedometer, temp gauge, gas, and then over here we have oil and amp lights. But with the alternator, I don't have an amp light anymore. And then this would have been for a clock if it was optioned with a clock. Now, I don't know, 100-something thousand miles ago, the speedometer cable snapped, and I've never replaced it. So mileage-wise, who knows at this point. 57 Plymouth's got the full horn ring. This is the standard wheel. Over here is our transmission selector. Like I said, this car was originally a Powerfly 2-speed, so originally it just had the 4-button transmission selector. There's just a low button down here, but when I converted it to the 727 out of the 64 Dodge torque flat, I put this correct torque flat buttons and everything in, which the 57 Plymouth, all the things are like color keyed with gold. 58, everything's silver, but in 57, gold. And actually all the little dots on the dash and clutch and everything was originally gold. So all these little dots in the Plymouth and the surrounds were gold, but they end up fading pretty badly over the years. I did add this cigarette lighter, mainly so I could like charge things while I was driving. The radio was added. I guess it could have been added at the dealer or later on in its life. Of course, I added the aftermarket gauges. I had this vintage 4-gauge pod here, but I never did put a 4th gauge in, so I just left this. It had this fuel gauge in here, so it doesn't mean anything. It's just a placeholder. This is just like, I don't even remember where this came from, but it's been hanging here for a while. But I added aftermarket temp gauge, amp, and oil pressure just to be able to monitor things on my road trips. Of course, you gotta have an ashtray, which is still full of things. One of the benefits of the later 727 is it has park. These cars in 57 originally with their cast iron torque flash just had a park and brake here that you pulled out that was on the tail shaft of the transmission. There was a brake drum. I ended up making this work with the rear axle of the car. I put in a rear axle out of a 64 Chrysler, which bolted right up, and it has the brakes, the parking brakes on the drums. So I hooked that up to this, and then I added a lever down here for the park on the transmission, so I can put it in park, made it a little safer. Here's my aftermarket switches here, which basically cuts on the siren. I can flip between the two. I think I need to have the key on for that. Which one is it? It's been a while. Oh wait, did I actually hook it up to the... Oh yeah, I forgot. Originally I had this toggle switch that I would do the siren with, but then I ended up switching it to be more correct for like a police car, and you just push the horn ring to engage the siren, or you flip the switch down and then you got your regular horn, which sounds like it needs to be replaced. So yeah, I forgot I did that. It's been a while. The other switches, this was originally for the siren, which I just left in there. So now I got a toggle switch that, and of course, like you can see, this is stuff I did like in high school, and you know, I just like stuck a screw in there, found some switches that would work. Yeah, there's some things I got to redo on this car. You can check out the new headliner. I sewed this up myself and recently installed it. Came out pretty good, I think, for my first headliner. At least the first headliner that I sewed myself. I also put new sun visors in. So interior, I'm gonna have to go through it. Like I said, this car was fully restored at one point. There's like little intricacies, like, you know, when I got the key on, the gas gauge never would just work on its own. I always had to give it a slap, and then you can see the gauge starts working. I don't know, it's just little things about cars that, you know, when you've owned them for so long, they have their little quirks, I guess, and that's one of them. Looks like I need to fix the oil light, because I did have it set up to have an oil light, but looks like it's not working. The radio did work, but it's since stopped working. Over here we got a glove box, which is packed full of mementos and all kinds of stuff over the years, all my road trips and whatnot. Who knows what all is in here. Oh yeah, like that's a rattlesnake rattler, and that is a cone from a redwood tree, I believe, if I remember right. Things that people give you, I don't know, just all kinds of stuff. There's like a time capsule in there when you go through it. Yeah, I mean, this car is my favorite car, so that's why I want to get this thing going again. Now, as far as driving it, you just, you know, fire it up, take it out of park, and we just put it in drive. Oh, and one other thing on these 57, 58 Plymouths, there's no lock knobs here that most people are familiar with. Actually, to lock the door, you just put, well, you shut it first, then you just push this forward, and that locks it. And then to open it, you just pull it back. Works pretty good. You can't lock yourself out of this car because you have to use the key to lock the door from the outside. You can't just push this and shut it. It'll unlock itself. So benefit is you can never lock yourself out. In case you're wondering, gas fill here on the driver's side. And we got a trunk. Just push the button. It's full of all kinds of stuff. Old fuel pump. I think I had to change that out on the side of the road at some point. Miscellaneous tools and some extra parts and such. And these were the cans that were tied on the back of my car when I got married. So, and some stickers. I was putting stickers on the trunk. Of course, gotta have a fire extinguisher. But that's the original trunk mat, which is pretty hard to come by these days. They don't make new ones, so this one's not in the best shape, but it at least is there. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video on my 57 Plymouth Savoy. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you haven't, be sure to check out my Instagram at Obsolete Automotive. That's kind of more day-to-day things, stuff I come across, things like that. You can also check out my Patreon where you can show support for the channel. I'll post links to all that in the description of this video, so be sure to check that out. And those of you that subscribe, thanks a lot, appreciate it. Now, I'm also curious, be sure to comment, do you still have the first car that you ever owned? And what is it? And why did you keep it? I kept mine mainly for sentimental reasons. I will never sell this car. I can sell all the other ones if I had to, but this one, never going to be for sale. So I'm just going to keep enjoying it. I got some more work to do on it. Basically kind of get it back to the way it was. It's got a lot of miles on it, so I got to redo some things. Just make it safe. Like, main thing is, like, right now the steering box is so worn out, so sloppy that it's really not safe to drive. So that's kind of why it's been mothballed for a long period of time, was mainly that steering box. So be sure to check out any of my other videos. I got some more videos coming. Summer's coming up, so that means road trips hopefully. So I'm going to try to get some more cars most likely and take some road trips to see more of America. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, and I'm glad you enjoyed it.